So we're at the Muster Field, part of Minuteman National Historical Park in Concord, Massachusetts. Behind me is the North Bridge. You can probably just see the monument on the other side. This is the field where about 450 provincial militia and Minutemen formed before they marched off to the fight at the bridge. There were two lines behind me that stretched over into the woods. How do we know where they were? Let's go to the Concord Museum and find out. So we're here at the Concord Museum, checking out their April 19th exhibit, and David Wood, curator, is going to tell us about these flints here.
Okay, so what we have are actually 22 gun flints, each about an inch square, and they are arranged in two lines, some of them slightly smaller than some of the others, some of them with some damage on them, some with no damage at all. And these were discovered in 1934 by an archaeologist who knew the Muster Field, which lies just above the bridge, and knew it had not been plowed in his memory. And this is Benjamin Lincoln Smith, founder of the Mass Archaeological Society. He knew that if a field in Concord gets plowed in the spring and it rains, you'll find native-made artifacts. And that was his interest, was the stone artifacts of the indigenous people of Concord. But what he found instead were about 100 gun flints in two lines, and he correctly deduced what they were. Because there is an account that the adjutant of the day, Joseph Hosmer, put the minute troops in one line and the militia troops in another line. There are about 450 provincials up there above the bridge at that point. And what's not recorded, that fact is recorded. What's not recorded is that they changed their flints. These flints themselves are the only evidence that that happened. And it's clear the order was change your flints, because some of these are used and some are unused. They were all changed. Some are larger for, they're meant for a firearm like a Brown Bess. Some are smaller because they're meant for a fowler, like the fowlers you can see in the case above them. The thing there are a couple things about this that I find especially fascinating. One is that when you think we did this, we walked up there, when you stand there and you think, okay, here they are in two lines, and there are the regulars down there at the bridge, the regulars could see that they were changing their flints. And you change your flints because you want a nice fresh flint in there, and you get a whole shower of sparks, and your musket is more likely to go off. So it's an audacious thing to do right there in full view. But the other thing is, we know who these guys were, many of them. Not all of them. We know who some of them were. And I look at these and I go, I know that one of those people pinched that between thumb and forefinger and dropped it at his feet. And then about a minute later, marched down to the bridge in military order, and when ordered to do so, returned fire. Just an extraordinary moment.
So we have another artifact that was very close to the fight that day, and Erica Loam from the Concord Museum is going to tell us about it.
This is a looking glass. It is made of walnut and pine, and used to have more mirrored glass in it. Now all that is left is a small fragment in the lower left-hand corner of the frame. So it is empty right now, but the walnut frame still survives. And this belonged to Captain David Brown. He was a captain in Concord's Minute Company. And the morning of April 19th, this poor looking glass suffered a pretty brutal fate. David Brown's house was footsteps away from the North Bridge, and on the morning of April 19th, light infantry from the 10th Regiment were posted outside that house. David Brown himself was at the North Bridge, mustering with the rest of Concord's militia and minute companies. And members of the light infantry just went right into his house and vandalized it. They smashed the butt of their musket into this looking glass, and the glass shattered and left all but this one fragment on the floor, and kind of the rest of it's been lost to time, I would imagine. But the family kept this looking glass with that fragment of glass in it. And a little bit of background for you, looking glasses were among the more expensive items in a household in the 18th century. And that's because the glass inside them, the specialized process of making that glass, made it very expensive to obtain. You essentially had to get it from England. And so the glass is the expensive feature, not necessarily the wood around it. And to have a looking glass in your home was a marker of great, good, let's say great wealth and status, especially one of this size. And so the act of smashing it was really a brutal act of vandalism. And this wasn't just a one-off. We know that British regulars did this throughout the Revolution, and it was a purposeful act of violence. And can you imagine coming back to your home and seeing this beautiful mirror now broken? And it served as a reminder that the violence on April 19th was not just towards other people, but it was towards these objects, which have now since acted as witnesses to the events of April 19th. And when you think about how it survived years and years, centuries, the members of David Brown's family knew that this was an important artifact, and they knew it was worth preserving. And so we're incredibly lucky that it's here today at the Concord Museum.
So we're here at Minuteman National Historical Park, and we're at the site of Captain David Brown's house. You can see it right behind me here, are these granite markers. The North Bridge is directly behind us. And who was Captain David Brown? Park Ranger Jim Hollister is going to tell us about him.
So David Brown was 47 years old. He was a farmer. He had a modest farm in Concord, about 67 acres. He lived here with his wife Abigail and 10 children, plus their uncle Elias. So smallish house, large family, a little bit cramped, but he was well respected in town, active in town government. He was also responsible for maintaining the road and the causeway leading to the North Bridge right behind me. Now, in January of 1775, when the town of Concord voted to raise a Minuteman company, David Brown, active in militia affairs, was elected as lieutenant of the company under the command of Captain John Buttrick. And later, when John Buttrick was promoted to major, David Brown moved into the captaincy and command of the company. Now, if you think about what's going on in 1775, you have a military government in Boston. The harbor is blockaded by the Navy. There's a growing presence of British regulars in the town, and it's looking increasingly hostile. However, they've been watching this situation deteriorate really over a span of about 10 years. But on April 19th of 1775, particularly for the Brown family, that whole crisis that had been involving governments on either side of the Atlantic Ocean literally came here to his own front yard.